Our next session is a leader's discussion on this topic, born in the cloud advantage. Moderating this discussion is Mr. Vikash Jain, MD and Senior Partner at Boston Consulting Group. Vikash leads the BCG's Technology, Media and Telecom practice in India and co-leads BCG's growth tech efforts, which is focused on working with digital natives and next-gen companies. Vikash is a global topic leader within BCG on ITES space and is actively engaged at the industry level on a wide range of industry level initiatives such as skilling and gigs that leverage the power of technology to unlock significant value. Joining Vikash is Neeraj Singh, co-founder and CTO of Groww, and Saurabh Tiwari, Chief Technology Officer at policybazaar.com. Vikash, over to you.
Thank you, Vibhu. Thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation with a couple of very interesting folks that I have on with me. But before I start the introduction to my esteemed guests, I just want to talk about some very interesting session that has played out during the day. I think the first one that really stuck a note well with me was when Suresh talked about what the board's agenda should be and a very strong cloud attitude or a cloud first attitude or a cloud only attitude. I think that's a great way to think about agendas and how it gets laid out for the corporations. And the second session was when we had a bunch of global leaders talking about, cloud not at the periphery, but driving real scale and impact from that intervention. And really two themes that worth keeping in mind as we talk about enterprise. But switching gears, I have with me a more interesting cast, the people who get talked about the most these days, and I'll let them introduce themselves very quickly. I have Neeraj and Saurabh. They come from very, very privileged roles of doing the hard work of setting up large unicorns. And I'll let them introduce themselves. I thought I won't do a good job of doing that. So Saurabh, why don't you go first and just give the audience a quick sense of where you're coming from and the history and the rich experience that you bring to this conversation.
Thanks, Vikas. Pleasure to be here along with Neeraj and you. I actually am a CTO of policybazaar.com, been with PolicyBazaar for nearly a decade. And it was the time when, after working in a multinational company, we were trying to set up PolicyBazaar at a scale. People used to say that after studying so much, why are you selling Bima? So those were the days. And it was the time when people always used to think that insurance can only be sold in person. And we have transformed the space, and since then we have been constantly working in the digitization piece. And I've been fortunate to work in the industry for nearly 22 years. So I've also seen the era where there was no cloud. And we generally used to have so much of hassle around building applications. So all along, I've been a constructor. I've been a guy who has been building softwares from the scratch. I've seen the journey of a pre-cloud era and post-cloud era as well. So happy to be here and happy to have a discussion. Thank you so much for inviting me over here.
Thanks, Saurabh. Yes, Bima could only be sold in person, and that era for sure has changed for many other things as well. Neeraj, if you can take a minute to talk about yourself.
Thanks, Vikas, for hosting both of us. So basically, I'm a CTO at Groww. I'm also one of the co-founder. And at Groww, we are trying to make investing simple for everybody. Now, I'm also a very normal average software engineer, and setting up something like this where you have understanding of development, but not on the infra side, cloud has helped us a lot, basically. So I'm very happy to be here and talk about it. How was our journey? How it has helped us, building Groww.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Neeraj. Thanks, Saurabh, for joining me in this conversation. So let me, before we just get to more specific questions, Saurabh and Neeraj, maybe both of you on this question can get your early thoughts. As you think about both PolicyBazaar and Groww obviously is a more recent phenomenon, PolicyBazaar, as I said, has a longer history. Did you always start on the cloud? Were you a classical born in the cloud company, or there was a more traditional way of doing things, and then at some early point you kind of did the journey? Just talk a bit about your journey as regards clouds the last 10 odd years that you've been part of PolicyBazaar, Saurabh.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because In fact, we started by keeping servers on our premise, and a lot of times the electricity used to go off, and then we have to put redundancy and backup. Those were the eras of 2008, 2009. I wasn't there, but we were setting up everything in Gurgaon in our office, and we were trying to basically bring the site up every time whenever there is something used to go wrong. One of the important things which was important point for us to make a decision around cloud or not cloud right from the beginning has been regulation. So we are a very regulated entity, and it was very clear from the regulator that your data can't reside outside. And that is the reason when we started getting into a very professional setup of deployment, we chose some of the strongest providers in India who kept their data centers in India, like NetMagic and Tata Communication. We hosted there, and we kind of waited for Amazon and other clouds to appear in India until 2016. And the moment they came, it was a no-brainer for us. We were just waiting, and then we got onto the latest cloud offering that we had at the time in 2016. And since then, we have been largely cloud. So that has been our journey. And right now, I think 95% of our infrastructure is on cloud right now. And whatever 5% is there, that is largely because of some reason we are keeping on-prem.
Got it. So, you said in your premises, I remember discussions with my clients 15, 17 years ago where they said it's actually under the table with pretty much everyone. So, Neeraj, you're a more recent interest in the space. Talk about your journey.
By server room, I remember one funny incident. So when we took our first building, so before that we were in co-working space. We used always co-working space. Then the time came where we moved into our own floor. So there was some previous company earlier, they had a server room. It was huge basically. So when we were, reviewing the entire premises, they said it's a server room, you can set up your servers. And we were surprised. And now that room is nothing but a meeting room for us. So we actually pretty much started with the cloud itself. And when we started in 2016, that time, no options were there even that time. So we hosted our initial few services in Singapore, basically. And I sort of talked about regulation. And then as we read more, we understood more about this space. We realized as long as you are small, it doesn't matter. But if you want to grow, you need to have something within India. That time, customer base was very, very small, and most of the data was, public data only, like product pages and all. So it is okay to host over there. But before starting, actually, I think we were lucky. I think timing for us was very right. Mumbai data center by AWS opened, then GCP also, moved into Mumbai. They are, I think, very close in Mumbai space. And now they have even more than Mumbai, they have in Delhi as well. So it has helped us a lot. Initially, we started there from Mumbai. When we scaled up quickly, we introduced mutual fund first, then we introduced stocks. Now stocks is our 1-year-old product. And now, setting up DR and everything is also even possible, very much possible, because now you have two different regions on the same cloud. So you don't need to worry about, going multi-cloud or something like that. That is helping us a lot. I think we can take up more things if you want to know.
No, absolutely. Look, let me build on the question. Maybe this again would be helpful to understand just the context from where both of you are coming from. And sort of you started talking about the whole journey. As of today, are you purely on the cloud? And how much of that is private versus public? And how much of that is single versus a multi-cloud environment? I mean, give us a rough sense of the landscape of the infrastructure that you're running.
So frankly, we have not taken the private journey yet. We attempted a few times, but we have been so satisfied with the public cloud. We have not taken the private cloud yet. However, we do take the hybrid model where part of our non-critical business application or the ones which may have a bit of downtime possibilities on-prem. But rest of the application, which is mission critical, business critical, is all on cloud. And we do rely upon that. I think we do use most of the known clouds right now in the industry. For different business lines, we do the different clouds. So we are multi-cloud, and the multi-cloud infrastructure as a service is also there, and API as a service is also there. So wherever we find the best, we consume it. But our larger part of the infra for each business unit is lying on one single cloud. So we keep that kind of a clear segmentation in the system, just because we don't want to have any kind of latency which is flowing around multiple clouds, and we do want to keep the experience intact. I know, I mean, the multi-cloud based on redundancy can be a very powerful concept, but still practically we find it very challenging. I mean, it's very, very tough. And some of the times we also face the issue when one of the cloud provider went down. So one of the part of the business was down, another part of the business was up. And that's the way we have been working.
No, thanks. It's interesting. You said that some of your most mission critical is actually in the cloud, and it's quite a paradigm shift where historically it'll be exactly the other one, right? The mission critical you'll try and keep under control.
And our cloud provider has been very reliable, so we haven't had that kind of issue yet.
Got it. And Neeraj, just describe your architecture, just from private, public, multi, single, on-prem, pure cloud. How do those variables play out for you?
So we are 100% on public. We don't have any private cloud infra as of now. I think at some point of time, it makes sense when you become big enough to host it your own. And there are a lot of vendors who can help you set up your private cloud as well. There are other options as well. For example, if you use NetMagic, you set up your servers over there, and then there are software providers like GCP who can let you control that infra through their software. And so is such example. So that model is also very, very famous. Yeah, people go for that. But I think for example, banking or PSU, these businesses, regulated businesses want to move because they are already big enough. I think they can go for a private clouds setup because of the regulations, and a lot of privacy and trust is needed over there. Security is also very, very important factor. So for us, we are 100% on cloud almost. We need to connect to stock exchanges. So we have a lease line between GCP. We are hosted on GCP, by the way. So from GCP to exchange, we have put up lease line. So practically everything is possible that you can do in your private. You can do same thing in your public infra also. Everything is supported. And you can scale up, scale down faster. As you know, stock market, when it opens and rest of the day when the market shuts down after 3:30, nothing. I mean, servers are left, with only regular traffic. So you can scale down at that point of time. So for us, it is working out very nicely. So we are 100% on public cloud.
Understand. And Neeraj, the scalability, the better economics are well understood advantages of cloud. And some of those become even more stronger as you go to the public cloud environment. What other advantages that you talk about or you think through as you think about a cloud environment, and especially in the public cloud? Any specific ideas that you use to rally discussions and decisions around that? Just the key advantages beyond just the economics and scalability.
So I think one thing is, time opportunity. Basically, when you're starting up and you invest a lot of your time figuring about infra rather than focusing on business. So, I mean, that's a distraction to me. So that is one great advantage. I think you can purely focus on your business and don't have to worry about setting up infra. Any normal software engineer can handle it, can control it. There is a lot of documentation, a lot of videos, a lot of tutorial. You spend some time, you can understand it well, and you can use it effectively. Plus, nowadays, when I started, that time support was not in India. We used to call in US, and now the Indian support is available for all the cloud provider. Most of these people offices are either in Bangalore or Noida, Gurgaon. You can meet them in person. They can come down to your office. So a lot of coordination is also very, very easy. So support that you get from these people is very, very good. Basically, you can go for any cloud, and I think depending on your needs, your requirement, I think people should be able to figure out which one works out better. So that is another good example that you get a good support now. They will have their consultants, architects working with you. Even if your knowledge is limited, they'll help you to set up all of it. So apart from scale and all, I think these two are a very, very important thing that as a startup you would need, because knowledge will be limited. You will be focused on your business. You don't want to spend much time on setting up infra. Apart from that, for example, if you are into our kind of business where regulation, regulation is important. Security of cloud or data is very, very important. That is like very key to the survival of your business. They are also pretty well handled in the cloud infra, and all you need is basically use them properly, configure them the way it suits your regulatory requirement. All these clouds are certified. Basically, either you are doing PCI DSS or anything else, so they are compliant, and not just in India, in fact across the world. That also helps a lot if you are in a regulated business.
Actually, it's interesting that you started.
Because I just add a couple of more points. I think to make this
yeah.
little better. I think what Neeraj said is a very right thing, because you end up basically having a lot of control. And I remember that was the biggest thing which I used to miss in the 2010 when I used to deal with some of the providers. Used to call them and said, can you bring down one instance of the database? I really don't need. They used to say, okay, sir, the TAT is around 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hours. Now it is just a click of a button. You have complete control. And secondly, what I have found, the latest tech is not having any boundaries anymore. They are available across the globe. So that's another advantage which I see with the emergence of cloud. So anything which is working phenomenally in the Bay Area, right, you can immediately use at your end if you want.
Great point. Actually, that's a very interesting one. The access to innovation and the latest.
Correct.
I think the security in data, and you both are in the financial services, and you know how big that concern is in your more traditional peers as they think about cloud environments. And it's very interesting to hear the view coming from the younger companies. Sort of maybe with you, with massive scalability, and a multi-cloud environment, there comes in some parts a expensive cloud bill, right? And along with comes potential cloud waste. And you said it can be controlled. Unused environments, oversized VMs, that's just examples of some of the waste that exist. What's your thought on that, and how do you manage that?
We manage it very vigorously, and that has been the genesis of Policy Bazaar culture right from the day one. So we have been very clear in terms of our cost while we continue to make the business growing. So we monitor it on a almost daily basis. We have also put the constraint on certain partitions so that unwanted data is not being scanned, because a lot of time the problem happens. Developers don't understand. They write a query which scans the entire data and kind of basically pushes the bill to unwanted dollars, which you don't want to basically take. We also look at the size of the VMs, how much the utilization is there. So we have a team of around 5 to 6 people whose job is to constantly monitor and figure out anything which is happening on the cloud infra and take the appropriate call, work very closely with the development team. Our infra team, DevOps team, whatever you call it, SRE team, they work very closely with the development team to make these calls on a daily basis. So we don't wait for a month, something to basically figure out or flash out that this is not working, this is a little oversized. Other than that, I think we tend to have scalability as an option on for certain areas where we have a chance of going up and going down. So auto scaling generally helps in bringing the unwanted usage down wherever it is needed. And containerization has tremendously helped in cutting down the overall cost, where you can launch containers on the need basis, and whenever you don't need, you can just bring them down automatically. So overall ecosystem cost is very well managed and maintained with the effort of people as well as technology.
That's right. Neeraj, any thoughts from you on that?
Because I missed some part of the question. Can you quickly?
No. The question really was, especially the environment Saurabh described, which is multiple clouds, some on-prem. I think one of the things that we start to hear is massive sticker shock in terms of bills, and cloud waste has become an issue. Probably less so in younger companies which are more nimble and agile, but in traditional companies, we are beginning to see a bit of that. Any thoughts from you on how do you manage, how do you deal with such situations where multiple clouds is leading to waste, oversized capacity, unused environments, and so on and so forth?
That is actually very true, and especially if you are, setting up for the first time, you're starting up for this is my first startup, right? So a lot of things which we learn from the mistakes, and what you just said happens a lot, that your bill will surprise you, and most of the time it is the inefficient way of utilizing your infra. basically.
Mhm.
Where timing is also important, monitoring is also important. When you spin off, when you have to shut it down, knowing that part is also very, very important. As well as, I would say, if you want to avoid those surprises, the best way is don't be reactive. You proactively plan your infra at least for 1 year and have a budget plan for the business as per your scale. The business you're expecting in a certain way to grow, that 20%, 30% month over month, whatever is your projection, number of users. So basically, if you do the math, you can figure it out as per active user. Some pivot you will need to measure your infra as a function of your user activity, and based on that you can do a projection of your production as well as your other needs of testing and UAT and other environment as well, because developers, testers, they also need a separate set of environment, and that consumes bill. As well as then let's talk about analytics part as well. As Saurabh talked about, somebody running a query and where you are billed as per the query, or you are billed as per the amount of data which is being scanned. Some places you are billed as per the CPU usages or other thing that you are doing. But analytics, for example, we are on GCP, we use a BigQuery, which has a different formats of billing. So you need to figure out what works better for you. So you can limit as per the your requirement. If it goes beyond that, then stop it. So there, it's just a way how you configure those things. So yeah, this happens, and I think initial few times people might get surprises, but if you do in a very, very planned manner, if you have a matrix driven way of measuring your infra, and you map it with your company's growth, then you can definitely control it, and it's very easy to find out where your money is going unused if you set up the monitoring. A lot of dashboards coming today, where you can see where you just feed your raw bill, and they will give you the split ups, and those split up you can see where it is going.
Got it. No, I picked up a few things. One is a metrics driven sizing that you talked about, and sort of you said about a team that actively monitors, and I'm sure using a bunch of tools. And third one I picked about is very actively planning the commercial arrangements you're setting up for the pricing mechanism with your providers so that you control the cost. I think good ideas there. I have a couple more interesting questions and I'll run through quickly, maybe one each. Neeraj, I think one of the questions, and you talked about the simplicity of use of cloud, but there's also a constant development that's happening, which means the talent is something to keep an eye on, both getting the right people as well as reskilling and upskilling. How's been that for you, and what are your thoughts around that?
I think so there also I agree, because you're competing now globally, not just within India, and this is known factor because everybody is working from home. So anyone can hire anyone across the world. So we are competing globally. So finding right talent is definitely a challenge. But what I believe is that cloud infra is such that you will always find a couple of engineers who would be interested in learning about that. So even this is so simple, and as you said, ease of access, ease of usability had made it so simple that people, if they understand the basic fundamentals, anyone can learn it. It's just a matter of a couple of weeks, and they can definitely use it. So even if you get one or two people who are experienced enough, you can train the rest of the team. And nowadays, I think it is good to learn. It is good for everyone to learn, because if you want, this topic is about entire nation onboarding and adopting cloud more and more. It is not possible only few guys keep focusing on it, right? Every software engineer, everyone else, every industry has to understand and learn it.
Got it. Saurabh, one question for you, and then maybe a common question for both of you. Very, very quick, rapid fire. You talked about data security, being an important thing that you're getting from the cloud. There is obviously a view that public cloud concerns around data security starts to come up, and then the whole notion of how do you manage that, which is where the financial services actually is at one end. Where are you on that spectrum, and what advice will you have for companies as they think about this issue?
I think on the contrary, I would say rather it's a lot secure if you use the right set of tools. I personally believe you get the best out of the world in the cloud environment. You can choose your security providers at different layers, whether you want to have the edge security, whether you want to have the application security, whether you want to basically have the network security. And I still remember the era way back in 2014, I was traveling to some part of India, and suddenly my infra head called me and said, "Sir, nothing is getting accessible." And after 3-4 hours, we realized it was a DDoS attack. It's 3-4 hours time to realize that it was a DDoS attack. I don't think it would have been possible if we would have been on the cloud. We would have been protected. We would have mitigated the risk immediately. I would say, I think whatever you do on security, nothing is sufficient, first of all. But
Correct.
Whatever you can do as a precaution proactively, I think there are very good options available on the public cloud. And one has to choose what they need and at what level the security has to be mitigated. But beyond getting help from the public's cloud provider on security, the most important part which we tell our team is that you got to focus on certain basics while you're developing your applications. And that starts happening right from the design. So guidelines, etc., have been put in place. Alongside, we also do the scanning of the code base to figure out whether the right things have been put in place. But overall, when you are on cloud, you are in a very good chance. You have a very good chance of being a lot securer than what you can possibly be when you're controlling on your own. That's what I think.
Yeah. My last question, rapid fire to both of you, and maybe for companies more like traditional companies who are beginning to think about the cloud journey, what would be your 2 messages? Neeraj, if I'm able to start, just 2 quick messages.
I think just do it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That's cool. That's one. Saurabh, what about you?
I think my clear view is that there's nothing you should be inhibiting you from moving to the cloud. Cloud is a very good opportunity, and this more the people are going to be on the cloud, better the environment is going to be there.
Got it. Neeraj, Saurabh, thank you for the wonderful conversation. Fantastic to hear from younger companies on their cloud journey, and clearly something for the others to learn from. You've espoused the virtues of cloud, which are usually called as a challenge. So it's interesting to get that perspective. Thank you both for joining me on this conversation. Vibhu, I'd like to hand this over to you.
Thank you, Vikash, Neeraj, and Saurabh for a very insightful discussion. The true test of cloud success begins when it comes to managing your cloud environment after you have adopted it. Treating cloud like an OTT subscription model where you pay for monthly usage is the biggest mistake that enterprises make, as they end up spending more in comparison to what they would have otherwise spent on an on-premise infra.